Before we begin, let us know in the comments where you are from. Over the years, I've built companies, lost fortunes, launched rockets, blown them up, faced global praise, and been called reckless. But every single moment, whether success or failure, taught me something that stayed with me. Some lessons came cheap. Most came with a price. Here are 50 of them, the turning points that shaped who I am today. Childhood curiosity. I grew up in Pretoria, South Africa, and I wasn't like the other kids. While they were outside kicking a ball, I was inside reading encyclopedia volumes cover to cover. I wasn't just curious, I was obsessed with knowing why things worked the way they did. That obsession became my greatest tool. First product. When I was 12, I coded a little space game called Blaster on my Commodore V IC 20. It was simple, just some pixelated ships and explosions, but it sold to a magazine for $500. That tiny transaction proved something huge to me. Ideas could become real, and real things could have value. School fights. School wasn't kind to me. I was small, awkward, and often a target for bullies. Once, I was beaten so badly I ended up in the hospital. I learned young that pain fades, but what you take from it, resilience, patience, determination, lasts a lifetime. Leaving South Africa. By 17, I knew I had to leave my home country. I didn't want to serve in the apartheid military, and I wanted to be where the future was being built. Canada was my first stop, a stepping stone toward the United States. It was the first big leap into the unknown. Boiler room job. My first year in Canada, I took whatever work I could get. One of those jobs was cleaning a boiler at a lumber mill, a dark, cramped, suffocating place filled with heat and dust. I remember thinking, if I can get through this, I can survive anything. Nightclub entrepreneurship. At the University of Pennsylvania, I rented a big house with my roommate. We turned it into a nightclub on weekends, charging students at the door. That experience taught me more about business, logistics, and customer psychology than any lecture ever did. Dropping out of Stanford. I got into Stanford for a PhD in applied physics, but I quit after just 2 days. The internet was booming, and I knew if I didn't jump in, I'd miss my shot. Timing, I realized, can be more important than credentials. Zip2 beginnings. My brother Kimball and I started Zip2, an online business directory for newspapers. We couldn't afford an apartment, so I slept in the office and showered at the YMCA. Every dollar went into keeping the servers running. Zip2 sale. 4 years later, Compaq bought Zip2 for $307 million. My share was $22 million, life-changing money. But instead of retiring, I saw it as fuel for my next idea. X.com Gamble. In 1999, I used much of my Zip2 money to start X.com Common Online Bank. People thought it was crazy. Who would trust money to the internet? But I believe convenience would eventually win over skepticism. PayPal pivot. X.com merged with Confinity, which had a product called PayPal. We shifted our focus entirely to payments, and that decision saved the company. Sometimes survival means killing your own favorite ideas, losing CEO role. While on vacation, I was replaced as CEO of PayPal. It was a shock. I learned that leadership is never guaranteed. It's rented, not owned. PayPal sale. In 2002, eBay bought PayPal for $1.5 billion. My cut was $180 million. I could have stopped there, but the thought of wasting the rest of my life playing it safe felt unbearable. Founding SpaceX. I put $100 million into starting SpaceX, even though I had no background in rockets. People called me foolish, but not knowing how it's always been done let me question every assumption. Founding Tesla. In 2004, I joined a small electric car startup called Tesla Motors. Electric cars had a bad reputation, slow, ugly, and practical. I wanted to prove they could be beautiful and fast. Founding SolarCity. My cousins and I started SolarCity to make solar energy mainstream. Fossil fuels were dominant, but I believed renewables could be competitive. First rocket failure. In 2006, our first Falcon 1 exploded shortly after takeoff. Millions of dollars gone in minutes. Failure stings, but it's also a teacher. Second rocket failure. Our second launch failed in 2007. We had fixed the first problem, only to discover new ones. The process was humbling and expensive. Third rocket failure. By the third failure in 2008, SpaceX was nearly broke. I thought we were finished. Sometimes the lowest point comes right before the breakthrough. Fourth rocket success. On September 28th, 2008, Falcon 1 finally reached orbit. I remember the relief more than the celebration. It meant we had a future. NASA contract. Weeks later, NASA awarded SpaceX a $1.6 billion contract. It was the validation we needed, and a massive responsibility. Tesla near bankruptcy. At the same time, Tesla was weeks away from collapse. A last-minute investment round kept the lights on. Divorce. 2008 was also the year I went through a divorce. I learned that personal and professional crises can collide without mercy. Model S launch. When we delivered the Model S in 2012, it proved we could do more than just talk about electric cars. We could make the best car in the world. Model X struggles. The Model X nearly sank us again. Its complexity caused massive delays. I learned that adding features isn't always progress. Model 3 ramp. During the Model 3 ramp up, I slept at the factory to solve bottlenecks. Leadership means being where the problems are. Falcon 9 development. Building Falcon 9 was like going from a paper airplane to a 747. Every system was bigger, harder, and more critical. Grasshopper tests. Our vertical landing tests looked absurd at first. Then they worked, and the industry had to take us seriously. Reusable rockets. Landing and reusing boosters/launch costs. It changed the economics of spaceflight entirely. Crew Dragon mission. Flying astronauts for NASA was a milestone decades in the making. It felt like completing a promise I'd made to myself years earlier. Gigafactories. We built massive battery factories because no one else would. Sometimes you have to create the supply chain you need. Solar roof. Integrating Solar City into Tesla allowed us to connect homes, cars, and storage into one system. Hyperloop concept. I released the Hyperloop idea for free. Some ideas are meant to be open so they can spread faster. The Boring Company. It began as a joke about hating traffic. Now we're digging real tunnels in multiple cities. Neuralink founding. Neuralink started with the idea of helping people with paralysis, but its long-term goal is to merge humans with AI warnings. I've spoken about the risk of AI for years. I believe it's one of the most important challenges ahead, SEC troubles. A tweet in 2018 cost me and Tesla millions. I learned the power and danger of words. Short seller battles. Tesla's fiercest critics became one of my biggest motivators. Doubt can be fuel. Mars focus. Starship isn't about prestige. It's about ensuring humanity's survival on another planet. Pandemic challenges. During COVID, we had to keep factories running safely. Balancing health and survival was a constant battle. Buying Twitter. Acquiring Twitter was about reshaping public discourse. The reaction taught me that perception moves faster than truth. Starlink deployments. We provided internet to war zones and remote areas. Technology can be a lifeline. Supply chain chaos. When chip shortages hit, we rewrote Tesla software in weeks to work with new hardware. Speed matters. Dogecoin moment. Even a joke about cryptocurrency can move markets. Influence is a responsibility. Workload reality. At one point, I split my time between 5 companies. Sleep became optional. Public speaking fears. I used to hate speaking on stage. I learned to treat it like engineering. Break it into solvable problems. Hiring lessons. Hire for attitude, train for skill. One wrong culture fit can sink an entire team. Media noise. The headlines come and go. What lasts is what you actually build. Legacy thinking. I don't want my legacy to be wealth. I want it to be a world that's better because I was here. The future. I still feel like I'm just getting started. The biggest risks and the biggest rewards are ahead. Thank you for listening. Subscribe for more.